What is the deal with the hard right honing in on family? Family, family, family. You need to start a family. Men and women are obligated to start families. You need to start pumping out those kids, and you need to do it young, in your 20s, they say. Well, I have some theories on why they do this. They're focusing in on this for a multitude of reasons, but I think one of the most important is that they don't want to improve society structurally. They don't want government to do anything. They think that, oh, if we just have family values and, build good communities and people are having kids and they love their kids and provide for their kids, their kids will be able to get whatever they want, even if they're in poverty, then everything will be good. It's a solution. We don't need the government to help people. The problem solved, family will just help you no matter what. And you know what? It's very important to have good connections with your family. It's very important to build strong communities. Very important to make tons of friends who will help you out when times are rough. But you know what? Some people don't have that. And some people need to rely on help from the government. And so they do this to say, oh, we don't need government. We don't need big government programs. We don't need food stamps. We don't need paid family leave, which that's a really ironic one that they have opposed that because they purport to care about family values. But yeah, no paid family leave. No, just start a family and, fend for yourselves and everything will go great. You got these conservative commentators out there saying, oh yeah, I was young and broke and I didn't think I would ever start a family and I thought I was too poor. I was making $2 an hour or whatever, and then I had a family and I took the risk and now I make $700,000 billion per hour and it's so great. Everything is perfect. I started a family and everything worked out great. And yeah, start a family. If leftists would just start families, then they would turn into real American conservative patriots. That's what they say. Another reason they exploit this family issue, unfortunately, is that it's kind of a virtue signal on racial issues. A lot of these same types that promote having families will get very mad when they see interracial couples. Go on X, you will see right-wing accounts, oftentimes anonymous, by the way, so just some random profile picture of like an anime girl or like Homer Simpson or something, just giving examples, and they're mauling over pictures of interracial couples, with interracial babies. And it's like, I thought you cared about families. So what they really mean is, okay, start a family within your own race and have a lot of kids within your own race, because they melt down over interracial couples and they're like, no, we need people to have families, but we need them to have families the way that I want them to, And that means that white people have a lot of white babies because they're really concerned about the great replacement. That's one of their main concerns, which is a conspiracy theory, but they focus really hard on it because they want to try and make it seem like, we're the victims, we're fighting back against some nefarious forces, the World Economic Forum and all these institutions, they're trying to replace us and it's really bad. And unfortunately, some of it comes back to really extreme anti-Semitism and just antisocial behavior. So they point to that. Another reason that they do it is, it's a virtue signal. I mean, kind of like there are some progressives, I will say, who somewhat virtue signal in touting the idea of, diversity, like, diversity, and they don't really back it up. They'll just say, there was not enough diversity. There is so much diversity. I love it, and they won't really back it up, or explain how the diversity necessarily helps. And diversity is a good thing, but when you just say diversity, yeah, great, good, you're not really explaining anything. You're kind of just saying, look at this wonderful word. And similarly, I think family is one of those words where it's like, you have to like it. It's family. Come on. Family loves you no matter what. It's unconditional love. They're there for you when times are tough. It's so perfect. And so they exploit that that's their own virtue signal, basically. Like, so they see leftists kind of have some words that they sometimes say that's just, equity, equality. They're like, that's just virtue signaling. So let's come up with our own virtue signal terms. Both sides do it, to be fair. We have to be honest. Both sides sometimes do it. They'll say, I support this thing. And it's like, they don't really explain how, but they just say, this is good. Plenty of leftists support family too, but they don't go around virtue signaling about it, saying, we're for family values. We want men and women to have kids and adoption and make every child have two loving parents and it'll be perfect. No. Another thing is, the homophobia of the right. That they see family as like, okay, it has to be the nuclear family. It has to be the nuclear family. It has to be two parents, a man and a woman. They don't want two men. They don't want two women. They will maul, they will scream, they will accuse parents of basically being pedophiles if they are adopting a child, same-sex couples adopting a child. They'll do that. The far right will really do that. So, just go look at some of their posts on X. They'll get tens of thousands of likes just ranting about it and calling people sexual perverts for adopting kids. So, yeah, they purport to care about family values. in order to basically, reinforce their homophobia, their anti-gay sentiment. And then another issue is to reinforce their anti-abortion sentiment. It's like, oh, you support getting an abortion? You want to terminate that pregnancy? Wow, you just hate family. Yep, you just hate family. You're so bad. Yeah, you're so bad. And never mind that it might not just come down to, oh, I don't want to have kids, that's why I'm getting an abortion. That's not happening. That's not happening. No, there are usually some complications that arise when women get abortions that make them no longer want to go through with it. It might be a threat to their short-term health, their long-term health, their life. It might kill them. There might be a chance of that. And so why take that risk? So they get the abortion. It's a very intimate, very, very emotionally fraught decision. And a lot of these people just don't care. They go, what's wrong with you? You don't want to have a family? You don't want to squeeze out some more babies to raise? Come on. So they'll mull over that. Another issue. So I did say that leftists, love the family too. Leftists have family values, of course. They just don't go around virtue signaling about it. At least I think most do. But there are some instances where progressives may go a little overboard. Like, for example, the DSA was saying, okay, we need to abolish the nuclear family. There have been some leftist types who have said that. And to be fair, I haven't really looked into their arguments for that. But they'll say that. And so right-wingers will chimp that, they'll clip it out of context and be like, these freaks want to abolish the nuclear family. How on earth can we get along with this? And so they'll be like, oh, see, the family is under attack. The family's under attack, guys. We're not just virtue signaling. The family is under attack by the left. They'll point to a fringe few leftists who say bad stuff about the family. Take it out of context, by the way. Again, I'm not going to opine on the full context and, okay, is there some merit behind the idea of scrapping the nuclear family and what were they really saying? But they'll clip that out of context and they'll go, look at this. Look at this. The family is under attack. We saw this before with some of the moral majority types. Do you remember Pat Buchanan, who ran against President George H.W. Bush in 1992? He was very big on like, oh, the American family, our culture is under attack. You're just screeching about culture. That's another thing too, is the culture. They think, oh, it's American culture to have a family and, get a white picket fence and all this stuff. But, obviously they don't welcome immigrant families. They don't care about them, at least not, the paleocon types. Some of the neocons might and some of the libertarian conservatives might. Although at this point, libertarian conservatives are starting to drift in a more weirdly paleocon direction. It's kind of concerning to see, actually. They're becoming more rah-rah Trump. But, they'll separate families at the border. They'll deport members of families and keep some here and just turn it into a giant mess. Separate them, put kids in cages. They're like, oh, whatever. When we say we want family values, we actually just mean for white American citizens. That's what they really think. So yeah, it's white, straight American citizens. They use it basically as a Band-Aid for the welfare state because they don't really believe in much of a welfare state. Some of them believe in something, but a lot of them just want to say, no, get government out of this. Government is bad. No, I don't support government helping people. These should be family decisions. Families should just take care of each other. And so what if families are not doing well? What if families fall on hard times? Well, no, then they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It always comes back to that, that the system can't fail, that people just fail, that you just failed because you didn't have a family. You didn't start popping out babies when you were 24. What's wrong with you? Come on, you're not doing your duty. Well, I'll tell you what, no one has a moral obligation to have kids. No one does. No one does, plain and simple. There are some of these hard right commentators I've been seeing who are like, well, I have to say, I think it's immoral to not have kids. I actually saw someone say that. It's immoral to not have kids. Okay, at what point though? At what point? At 27? At 30? At 33? What if you have your first kid at 50? Have you been immoral, but then all of a sudden you're a moral person when you're 50 and you have a kid? Come on, people. Get a grip. Get a grip. Yes, family is important, but stop virtue signaling about it and stop using it to further racism and homophobia and transphobia and classism. Stop using it to justify shrinking the welfare state. No, none of that stuff. So please show this video to one of your far-right friends who obsesses about family and says, you need to have kids, it's your duty. I hope that this makes a lot of sense. I hope that this gets through to them. I hope they see, okay, no, not everything just comes back to family. Family can't fix everything. Sometimes we need systemic changes. We need a government that's accountable, a government that represents the people, a government that provides for its people. And we can't use family in order to divide people up by race and gender and sexual orientation. No, no, no. Anyhow, that about does it for this video. Please like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This is The More the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.